Welcome to PsycheSeek, your reliable source for all things psychology. Today, we're starting on a journey into the complexities of the human mind. We'll look into cognitive biases, those hidden influencers that subtly yet powerfully shape our decisions. These are the unseen forces behind our sometimes irrational choices, those puzzling leaps to conclusions we all too often make. They are the mental shortcuts our brain takes when processing information, often leading us astray from rational decision-making. So why should we care about these cognitive biases? Well, understanding these biases is crucial for self-awareness and better decision-making. By shedding light on these unseen influencers, we can strive to make more informed, rational, and ultimately, better decisions. In this video, we will explore some common cognitive biases that impact our everyday decision-making. So, buckle up as we embark on this fascinating exploration of the mind's hidden influencers. So, what exactly are cognitive biases? These are essentially unconscious errors that our minds make when processing information. They're like shortcuts or rules of thumb that our brains use to speed up decision-making. But here's the catch. These shortcuts can sometimes lead us astray, causing us to make irrational decisions or form inaccurate judgments. Cognitive biases arise from limitations in our brain's ability to process information. Our minds are incredibly complex, but they can't handle everything at once. So, to manage the vast amount of information we encounter daily, our brains use these biases to simplify things. Now you might be wondering, why is it important to understand these biases? Well, being aware of cognitive biases can significantly improve our decision-making and problem-solving abilities. It can help us recognize when our judgments might be skewed and adjust our thinking accordingly. It's a crucial step towards self-awareness and personal growth. Let's also remember that these biases are not necessarily bad. They are a natural part of our cognitive process. They've evolved over thousands of years to help us make quick decisions when we don't have all the facts. But in today's complex world, these biases can sometimes lead us to make less than optimal choices. Now, let's delve into some of the most common cognitive biases that influence our decisions. First up, we have confirmation bias. Picture this. You're convinced that a particular diet plan is the best way to lose weight. You find yourself only reading articles supporting this belief and ignoring or dismissing any information contradicting it. What you're experiencing is confirmation bias, a mental shortcut where we seek out and pay attention to information that supports our pre-existing beliefs, while ignoring evidence to the contrary. In the world of decisions, confirmation bias can be a sneaky saboteur. It can prevent us from seeing the whole picture, leading us down a path of decision-making based on incomplete or skewed data. It's like trying to assemble a puzzle with half the pieces missing. But don't fret, there's a way to counteract this bias. The first step is simply to acknowledge that it exists. Yes, our brains are wired to seek confirmation, but that doesn't mean we have to let it control our decision-making. Next, actively seek out information that challenges your beliefs. It might be uncomfortable, but it's a surefire way to get a more balanced perspective. Lastly, involve others in your decision-making process. They can provide alternative viewpoints and help challenge your pre-existing beliefs. Being aware of this bias can help us make more balanced and informed decisions. So the next time you catch yourself favoring information that confirms what you already believe, remember confirmation bias and take a step back. It could make all the difference. Next, we have the anchoring bias. This intriguing cognitive error is the human tendency to lean heavily on the first piece of information we encounter when making decisions. Imagine you're at a yard sale, and you see an old ornate vase. The seller tells you it's worth $50. Without knowing it, that $50 price tag has become your anchor. You might negotiate, but your starting point is already set. That's the anchoring bias in action. It's not just about yard sales and price tags, though. Anchoring bias can influence our daily interactions and impressions of people. That first impression you form when meeting someone, it's your anchor, and it can significantly sway your future interactions. However, it's not all doom and gloom. Recognizing the presence of anchoring bias is the first step toward mitigating its influence. So, how can we do that? Firstly, always question your first piece of information. Is it accurate? Is it comprehensive? Secondly, seek out more information before making a decision. This helps to balance your initial anchor. Lastly, be open to changing your mind. It's okay to revise your decisions as you gather more information. Remember, our minds are wired to make quick decisions, and that's where these biases stem from. But with awareness and practice, we can reduce the influence of anchoring on our decision-making. Moving on, let's talk about the Dunning-Kruger Effect. This intriguing cognitive bias comes into play when individuals with low ability at a certain task overestimate their capability. It's like being a novice driver who's convinced they could easily compete in a Formula One race. This overconfidence often stems from a lack of self-awareness and an inability to recognize one's own incompetence. Now let's picture this in real life. Imagine an amateur investor who, after reading a few articles and making a couple of lucky trades, believes they've mastered the stock market. Or consider a language learner who, after grasping some basic phrases, overestimates their fluency. These are classic examples of the Dunning-Kruger effect in action. But here's the silver lining. This bias is not an irreversible sentence. It's a hurdle that we can overcome with continuous learning and feedback. As we expand our knowledge and skills, we start to realize the depth of what we don't know. This is known as the conscious incompetence stage, and it's a sign of growth and progress. Seeking feedback from others is also vital. It provides an external perspective, helping us identify our blind spots and improve. So, next time you're feeling overly confident about a new skill, pause for a moment. Question your assumptions, seek feedback, and continue learning. Remember, the key to overcoming this bias is continuous learning and feedback. Lastly, we have the availability heuristic. This mental shortcut can be quite the trickster. It leads us to make judgments based on what's readily available in our memory, rather than considering all the relevant data. It's like picking the low-hanging fruit from the tree of knowledge, rather than taking the time to climb up for a more comprehensive view. Imagine you constantly see news about plane crashes, making you believe that air travel is incredibly dangerous. But in reality, statistics show that you're far more likely to be involved in a car accident than a plane crash. The dramatic nature of plane crashes, combined with their extensive media coverage, makes them more memorable and thus more available in our minds. Similarly, we might overestimate the prevalence of dramatic events like shark attacks or lightning strikes, because they're often highlighted in media and popular culture. However, mundane risks like slipping in the shower or tripping on a sidewalk, though far more common, don't leave as strong an impression in our memory. So, how can we ensure more balanced decision-making? First, we need to recognize when we're falling prey to the availability heuristic. Are we basing our decisions on vivid memories or dramatic stories? If so, it might be wise to dig a little deeper, gather more information, and question our initial judgments. By questioning our initial judgments, we can minimize the impact of the availability heuristic on our decisions. We've covered a lot of ground today, so let's recap. We started by pulling back the curtain on cognitive biases, those unconscious errors in thinking that often guide our decisions in unexpected ways. We discovered that these biases are not our enemies, but rather our brain's way of simplifying an increasingly complex world. We then delved into the confirmation bias, our inherent inclination to favor information that aligns with our existing beliefs. This bias can lead us to ignore valuable viewpoints and data, narrowing our perspectives. Next, we confronted the anchoring bias, that sneaky tendency to latch onto the first piece of information we receive. This can shape our decisions, sometimes leading us astray from more balanced judgments. We also met with the Dunning-Kruger Effect, a phenomenon where our confidence can outpace our actual competence. This bias reminds us of the importance of continuous learning and the value of humility. Finally, we examined the availability heuristic, our propensity to judge the probability of events based on how easily examples come to mind. This bias can distort our perception of reality, making us overestimate the prevalence of dramatic or memorable events. In understanding these biases, we gain the power to critically examine our decision-making processes, fostering greater self-awareness and more informed choices. Remember, awareness is the first step toward change. Thank you for watching. We invite you to share your experiences or thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content on psychology. Before we wrap up, remember to hit the subscribe button and follow us on social media. Let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned today. Cognitive biases, those invisible puppeteers of our minds, subtly influence our decisions every day. They're like mental shortcuts, helping our brains process information quickly, but sometimes at the cost of rationality. We dove into the depths of the confirmation bias, the tendency to cherry-pick information that aligns with our pre-existing beliefs. It's like we're constantly trying to prove ourselves right, even when we may be wrong. This bias can lead us to ignore or discount information that contradicts our perspectives. It's essential to challenge this bias by actively seeking diverse viewpoints and questioning our assumptions. Next, we explored the anchoring bias, which causes us to rely heavily on the first piece of information we encounter. Whether it's the first price we see when shopping or our initial impression of someone, this bias can influence our subsequent judgments. It's crucial to recognize when we're anchoring and make an effort to consider additional information before making decisions. We also delved into the Dunning-Kruger Effect, the curious phenomenon where individuals with limited knowledge or skill in a particular area overestimate their competence. It's as though ignorance somehow breeds confidence. The antidote? Continuous learning, self-reflection, and feedback. And finally, we examined the Availability Heuristic, where we base our judgments on information readily available in our minds, often leading to skewed perceptions. For instance, overestimating the likelihood of dramatic but rare events because they're more salient in our memories. To counteract this bias, we need to seek comprehensive data before making decisions. Understanding these cognitive biases is not about eliminating them completely. That's virtually impossible given they're a part of our brain's architecture. Rather, it's about cultivating awareness of their existence and influence. It's about making an effort to think more critically, to question our automatic responses and assumptions, and strive for more balanced and rational decision-making. We encourage you to take what you've learned today and apply it to your daily life. Reflect on your decisions, big and small, and consider how these hidden influencers may be at play. It's a fascinating and humbling journey of self-discovery and growth. And remember, the conversation doesn't end here. We'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, experiences, or questions in the comments section. Let's learn and grow together. If you found this video valuable, do give us a thumbs up. Your support means a lot to us. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming content. You can also follow us on our social media platforms. We regularly share interesting snippets and updates there. Thank you for spending time with us today. We hope you've gained some insightful takeaways. Stay curious and keep exploring the fascinating world of psychology with PsycheSeek.